Good evening, gentle listeners, and welcome to another edition of The Mayor and I with me, Lindsay Khan, and Nick Buckley, MBE, mayoral candidate for Greater Manchester. And that election, Nick, is taking place on the 2nd of May,
Yep.
which is
3 weeks today.
3 weeks today.
Today's Thursday, yeah.
3 weeks today. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
And you?
So this week in The Mayor and I, we are, given that we are so close to the election, we want to focus in on issues relating to Manchester,
Yeah.
specifically related to Manchester. And specifically, we have chosen items to discuss this week that are in the Manchester Evening News in the last couple of days.
Last 3 days, yeah.
So this isn't a detailed selection, cherry picking from all sorts of papers. This is Manchester Evening News, last couple of days, issues impacting on this mayoral area, basically. Yeah. And in these areas, we'd like to talk about tonight 4 primary areas: police, crime, child sexual exploitation, which is quite hard to say, Mr. Burnham and his campaign launch, and then finally about the quality of our politicians, but specifically our politicians in Manchester or in the Greater Manchester area. So we're not going to go all over the world this time.
Yeah.
We're going to focus
all Greater Manchester.
All Greater Manchester. And a lot of your responses to this are really going to give us an insight into your view of how you will run this county with as a mayor, basically.
Yeah.
So this is about your units. So let's go straight in on the police. And I think it's interesting. There's 3 stories on the police, and they're all not very good ones. So that in itself tells us something, because we've got 2 days of the Manchester Evening News here, and we have 3 stories that are particularly unattractive relating to the police. The first one is fairly gentle, I think, and that's that a former Greater Manchester police officer, a woman, has been accused, and I guess is standing trial for stealing a police uniform. Yeah. So what we've identified this as a story. It's obviously slightly titillating, I suppose. But why is this important?
The fact she stole some things from work isn't the big issue here, because who hasn't taken some pens from work and a notepad, and a friend of mine, a table and a chair? That's not the issue. The issue is she was a police officer and felt it was okay to steal things from work. So if she's already a thief and has those traits, what was she doing as a police officer? What else was she doing while she was on duty? What was she overlooking? She's obviously got a poor morality. How else did that affect her doing her job? Was she more open to bribes and corruptions? And I would say possibly, of course she was more open to that. I'm not saying she did any of those things. It's just a good indicator of that. It also shows us 2 other things: how stupid some of our police officers are. So that's who we're also recruiting. How would you think you'd get away from stealing things from Greater Manchester Police, unless you know everyone else is doing it and no one's ever been caught?
Yeah. Unless there's a general acceptance that this sort of thing is acceptable within the police.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is, since she's been caught and it's hit the papers, this is damaging to the reputation of Greater Manchester Police now. And I'm glad she's been caught, and we should always, every public service should always wash its dirty washing in public, because we need public oversight. So I'm glad doing it. But we need to be looking at recruitment standards. How was she ever picked as a police officer? What can we do in the future going forward to ensure we get a better quality of police officer? Now, you run a business, there's different tests you can do now online and in paper, and different questions to ask. We need to move with a modern time. People will always sneak through. There'll always be bad apples who sneak through. We can't have a 100% clean record. I get that. But it seems to be every week there's another officer who's discovered doing something. We had an officer the other week who was using prostitutes while on a police training course in London. We've got other officers who, we'll talk about in a minute, who go to jail. It's like, how are so many getting through the process? So the process needs looking at, and that's what I'll be doing if elected mayor. I'll be redesigning the recruitment process for Greater Manchester Police. It'll be physically tougher, mentally tougher. It might be hard to recruit officers, which is fine, in which case we'll have to put up the rate of pay for officers, won't we, to get a better calibre of officers. I would rather have less officers who are better than more officers with the type this woman was. So it's just a good indication of the failing recruitment process in Greater Manchester Police and all police forces across the country.
And there's 2 points for this for me that I think are interesting. Firstly, you just said then, what will people think when they read this? I don't genuinely believe anybody reading this will change their opinion of the Greater Manchester Police. I think a lot of people reading that will just say, yeah, it's the police.
Yeah.
And I think this is the next 2 stories are relevant to that, but I think this is where we've got to now.
Yeah.
I think the public confidence in the police and their honesty, their ability to not carry out horrific crimes is very, very low now. And I think people will read that and accept it. The second thing for me, and I think you've touched on this, is what are the recruitment policies for police? I mean, you talked about physical, mental tests. I think one of the things they should look at is IQ levels. Because I think there's a general belief that the police are not particularly bright in this country. And we see that. I mean, there was an incident the other day, I'm going away from Manchester, in London where a priest somebody was singing a hymn
outside
or something.
Outside a church or something. Yeah.
And they were told by the police officer that they couldn't do it. And I think, again, there's a belief amongst the general public that the police are not particularly bright as well. So an IQ test in that recruitment process for me would, although I understand you're not allowed to do IQ tests now, basically.
No, I didn't know that.
So apparently, I'll check that for next time.
Yeah. Part of the problem here, the big part of the problem in the recruitment process is the box ticking. So she was probably hired mainly because she was a woman.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what she failed on. You're a woman. We need more women. You get a job. I was speaking to a chief inspector a couple of years ago who gave me a great story. And he was on a recruitment panel interviewing potential new police officers. And a British lad of Bangladeshi descent was interviewed. He passed the physical, no problem. He passed the test, no problem. And at the end, they give you a written test to check out your English, your grammar, because you've got to write a lot of reports for core if you're a police officer. And the question was, write about the best day in your life. So he wrote this story. I'll quickly paraphrase it. He was at a nightclub, met this married woman, went back to a hotel room and slept with her, woke up in the morning. He wanted to spend a bit more time with her before her husband came and picked her up. So he phoned in work and said he was sick and spent the morning having sex with her. And that was the best day of his life.
Please tell me he wasn't recruited.
So this chief inspector reads this and goes, veto. He doesn't. His no morality.
Yeah.
He hasn't got the common sense to realise this isn't an appropriate story to join the police.
Yeah.
And he admits lying to his boss not to go to work. His boss, the chief inspector's boss, goes, we need more Bangladeshi heritage police officers, so we are going to give him the job. They give him the job. That's not the end of the story. 3 years later, the chief inspector now is working for basically internal affairs, looking for corrupt police officers.
Yeah.
Gets a case on his desk of a police officer stealing trainers from something like Foot Locker, going in, buying one pair, his mate in a shop giving him 10 pairs, walking out with 10 pairs, selling them online and them splitting the money. Cop has been arrested. And he recognises the name. It's the same officer he wanted to veto 3 years ago. He's been a poor officer, he's a criminal, and now we have to sack him. Now he said, in the chief inspector said, we've got to sack him now, and it's going to make us look racist. And it makes us look racist because we never should have given him the job in the first place. So when you lower the bar to get people to join who are not good enough, we eventually sack them, and that makes us look like we don't like women, we don't like black people, we don't like people of Bangladeshi heritage. It sets us up to fail in the eyes of the public, where if we had a high bar, most of these problems wouldn't exist.
Yeah. So what you're saying is positive discrimination creates problems like that.
Yes, it does.
Because you're lowering the bar, the standards that the police force should accept as a result of positive, and you end up with people who haven't got the correct...
We want the best
parameters.
people for every job. And I don't care who you are, your colour, your religion, your sexuality. I don't care. I just want the best person for the job.
That's a really interesting story, and quite sad actually. The second story about the police in the Manchester Evening News, again, quite grubby really. A policeman turned off he went to attend a call out from a vulnerable woman. I'm guessing somebody slightly mentally retarded, or I don't know if you can say mentally retarded anymore.
You can't say that anymore.
You get somebody. Well, what do you say then? What's the terminology?
In this story there, it was he went to the house of a vulnerable woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why was she vulnerable there?
I can't remember now, but it makes no difference.
He went to the house of a vulnerable woman, actively turned off his body cam.
Yeah.
And then had sex with her.
Yeah.
During the call out. Now, somehow this got out, and he's now been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. But we kind of go back around again to the same thing. What kind of person is this who was employed by the police force, who believes that he can do this and that he'll get away with it, and it's not a problem?
Yeah. So my understanding is the sex was consensual, so it wasn't rape.
But was it if she was a vulnerable woman?
Yeah. So you can argue that point, but yeah. So let's say it was consensual.
Yes. Okay.
He got caught because she wanted a relationship. So she was phoning him at work, spoke to other police officers about what had happened, and they must have reported him, and so they should.
Well, that's good, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because all these bad apples in Greater Manchester Police are only a tiny percentage.
Yeah.
You know, the vast majority of officers are hard-working, want to do the best.
How do you know that?
I've worked with police officers for 20 years, trained them, was based in police stations. The vast majority want to do a good job. They're hamstringed by their bosses, by the woke bosses, and what they can do, what they can't do. So, but they actively want to do a good job. This officer, disgusting. So he knew he was doing something wrong, obviously. He turned his body cam off. If we're sending the people we trust most of all to help vulnerable people, the last thing we need them to do is be taking advantage of that situation. And you can take advantage in many ways. He took advantage sexually. But what would we have done if he'd have sold this person life insurance, or remortgaged their house because he does a bit of remortgages on the side? What would we have done if he sold, if he ran a gym and wanted her to join a gym and sold the supplements? We don't need police officers with a hidden agenda, sexual or business-wise, who can take advantage of the most vulnerable people in our situation. Because when we have a police officer turn up at our door, we want them to only have our best interests at heart. And when we start second guess why they're here and why they're offering advice, it destroys that part of policing in the UK. And he's been sentenced to 3.5 years in jail, and rightly so. Also, we need to ask ourselves, this won't be the first time he's abused his position.
Yes.
This will be the first time he got caught abusing his position. Hardly anyone ever gets caught the first time they do something wrong.
Well, I guess the question for me on that one is, what kind of training do they give to police officers such that an individual like this believes he can get away with this sort of thing, doesn't understand the ramifications of what he's doing there? Are they being trained effectively in their process to understand that this kind of behaviour means they'll end up in jail? Do you think he would have done that? Do you think he understood when he turned his camera off and said, I'm going to have sex with you, that he could end up in jail?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. This isn't a training issue. This is a morality issue.
Right.
Again, we've lowered the bar so low.
Yeah.
Because once you lower the bar for women and for ethnic minorities, you've now lowered the bar. So now unfit white men can join, and unfit men with no morality who are perverts and sex offenders and criminals, they can also join. That's what happens when you lower the bar. So this is a morality question, which we're going to talk about later on as well with MPs. Morality. We've lost all morality now because my lifestyle choices are just as valuable as your lifestyle choices.
Yeah.
So don't you look down on me.
Don't question my lifestyle
for having
choices.
sex with chickens.
Yeah.
That's my, those chickens enjoy it, and it's my lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
How dare you look down on me?
And chicken sexers are an oppressed minority.
Yeah, they are.
And potentially could commit suicide if they're mocked for having sex with chickens. So don't you dare say anything negative about chicken sex. I sound a bit too informed on that. I'm not, obviously.
Yeah, but that's the That's the quagmire we've created for ourselves.
Yes.
Where now you can debate, usually internally with yourself, well, am I doing anything? I know it's against the rules, but am I really doing anything wrong? Because she wants sex, even though she's vulnerable and in a bad situation.
Yeah.
And I want sex, and homosexuality is fine, and this is fine, and that's fine, and I'm allowed to dress like I could be a police officer in her house now, dressed like a woman with a penis. That's fine. So why isn't this fine?
Yeah. Or I could be a policeman dressed up in a leather thong and, you know, a dildo on the police on the police celebration float day and doing that. So this isn't much different to that, is it?
Exactly. So that's how these people like this with low morality start to convince themselves they should do it.
I've got one thing that you said in that conversation I'm going to pick you up on.
Yeah.
And you said the majority of policemen are hard-working, principled. And how do you know that? I know you said you worked with them 20 years ago, but we're 20 years on now.
No, I've worked with them for 20 years.
Yes.
It's only that last couple of years I've really not worked with the police.
How do you know that? Because people say this about the NHS and nurses, don't they? Most nurses are hard-working, really committed, but there's obviously a few that aren't. But how do we know that?
It's a good question. I don't think we know.
I don't think we do know. I don't think there's any metrics or any measures that are taken in the police or are taken in the NHS for us to say, yes, that person's hardworking, that person isn't.
Yeah.
I would question whether the majority are hardworking and committed. I don't know.
No,
but
I think you've got really good. I think you've got a good point. As in, are they hardworking and committed based on your definition of hardworking and committed? Because you're in the private sector, running your own businesses. No one works harder than you because it's your business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The police are public servants. Public servants on the whole work to a lot lower standards and efficiency and hard working than the private sector do. I've seen that all my life.
Yeah.
So when I say the majority of police are hard working, I mean it in the context of what you'd expect in the public sector.
Yes, I see. Yeah. I think you're right. I don't know, but I'm just saying I think it raises the point that maybe we need to start measuring the performance of these people to understand whether they're hardworking or not.
There must be.
Which might be something you want to do.
I will do. There must be some sort of matrix we can look. Because if you're a police officer, and it's been 2 years now, you've not made an arrest.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Haven't you made an arrest?
Yeah.
What have you been doing for it? Unless you've got a special assignment, which is, going to old folks' homes all the time, full time, then you're not going to make any arrest. But if you're an officer, frontline officer, where's your record?
Yeah. Where's your arrests? Where's your cautions? Where's your whatever it is?
Yeah.
Because I think traffic wardens used to be like that. Traffic wardens weren't actually measured on the number of tickets they gave out. Now they are.
Yeah.
Which is why so many tickets. Well, I don't think that's a good thing, by the way.
They weren't measured on how many tickets were given out when they were council officers.
Right.
Once it went private,
that's why.
And those firms then take a percentage of every ticket.
Suddenly,
you're going to do tickets, mate.
Yeah. Now that is an area where we don't want people to be hardworking. Giving out tickets. Talking about hardworking constables, the final story, again, in the last couple of days in the Manchester News, again horrific. An on-duty constable raped a student, a Manchester student, I'm assuming, in her home, and then told her if she ratted him up or arrested him up, no one would listen to her. So another example. So we've got three. The scale increases here, doesn't it, really? But we've got three quite inappropriate, terrible, and the final story, terrible stories, all Manchester police people.
The difference with this story is the court case was today.
Right.
And he was found not guilty.
Ah.
So, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this one.
Why was he? Are you going to tell us why he was found not guilty, or you don't know?
Well, he was found. It doesn't matter. He was found not guilty in a court of law with a jury.
Maybe he was not guilty.
There's a good chance he wasn't. So, the reason why I want to talk about this one is because we've allowed the police to fail so much, and because their recruitment processes are so poor. Any story we hear about the police now, we automatically believed. So we go, officer has raped a student. Oh yeah, that's true. It turns out it wasn't true. He was found not guilty. But they've lowered their standards. They've lowered their reputation almost to the floor now, where we will believe anything because we don't put anything past the police anymore.
Yeah.
And that's not good for us as citizens, it's not good for society, and it's not good for the morale of the police. Now, every time we hear a story and it hasn't had a court outcome on anybody, we need to be sceptical because they always can be found not guilty. And that's to do with any criminal or the police or anybody. We always have back of our mind, we must always remember this hasn't been through a court of law yet. Because when we start judging people too early, this officer's life's now probably ruined. He's like, this was 2.5 years ago this complaint came in. He's had 2.5 years of this.
It said 15 years ago.
That's when the
incident happened. But it was only raised as an issue 2.5 years.
She only reported it 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
He's had 2.5 years of hell. He's been found not guilty. He's been off work for 2.5 years. He's been suspended. His career now is probably over. Any likelihood of promotion is over.
Yeah.
Any likelihood of doing anything else is over because he'll always be, during that time he was charged with rape.
Yeah.
He got away with that.
Yeah.
So mud sticks, I should know of what happened to me 4 years ago when the mob came for me and I was called a racist and a Nazi. It turned out I wasn't a racist or a Nazi, but mud sticks. So we just need to be careful sometimes about prejudging people. That's why we have courts of law.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point because you're right. I didn't know he'd been found not guilty. We discussed it earlier. But I'd forgotten and I just assumed he had.
Because that headline now is so believable.
I'm assuming his name is in the article.
Yeah.
But you're right. All three of those stories, I think if you show them to people, there's nobody will be surprised in Greater Manchester about those stories. And everybody will believe them as well that they happened.
And that's the tragedy.
Yeah, but is that a tragedy? Because
the
reason, Nick, that people believe that is because the police have been doing this sort of stuff for a long time.
That's not what I meant by tragedy. The tragedy is with the falling that low, that these stories now are true.
Yeah,
that's the tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're younger than me, but I remember when I was a kid, I had a respect for the police. And when I saw a policeman walking down, and they had the big hats on as well, they were big guys in those days as well. And I was genuinely in awe of the police and genuinely thought they were looking after us and doing a good job for us. Fast forward to now, I don't think that's the case at all. If I pass a police car on the motorway, I just think I need to drive a bit slow because they'll just try and do me for speeding. If I see a copper walking past, I don't think this person's going to defend me if anything kicks off. And on the few occasions in my life I've actually had to call the police and ask for help, they've never helped me.
Yeah.
They've never helped me.
Yeah. We've got to be careful of looking back with rose-tinted spectacles because the police in other decades, the 50s, 60s, 70s, were heavily corrupt. But we didn't know that because we didn't have mass media, we didn't have social media, people couldn't communicate as much. So we didn't know, so we treated them with a bit more respect and thought they were on our side more than they probably were. Part of this is a social media age where we know things. Now, that's damaged the police, but it's a good thing. There's no point having a corrupt, failing police force and us not knowing about it and thinking it's doing a good job. And no, it's still failing. So let's find out it's failing and then we can fix it. So I'm glad we've found out now how poor the police are because now me or people who come after me can start fixing the police. Police oversight is really important. That's something I'm going to be looking at if I become mayor. Because the mayor is also the police crime commissioner of Greater Manchester. And I'm going to set up...
It is one of the few powerful positions.
Yeah, absolutely. The mayor can sack the chief constable with no warning and no reason.
I think you should sack the chief constable on day one with no discussion.
He's actually
just to send a message.
Doing okay, so he will know where he stands on day one.
You've gone native already, haven't you? You've gone native. No, he said you're going to reform the police, and you've already let the chief constable off.
He's anti-woke.
Yeah.
He stopped his police dressing up in rainbows. He got rid of all the rainbow cars.
Good.
But he's also being controlled by Andy Burnham, so there'll be more stuff he wants to do that Andy Burnham's going,
oh, so you're
not doing it. So I'll be taking the leashes off the
Right.
chief constable. I would tell him what I want to see. And if he doesn't deliver, I'll sack him. But at the moment, he seems to be wanting to do a good job, and he's doing a good job in certain areas.
Will you, just in terms of your management of him, how do you expect him to report to you in terms of, is he going to call you every day? Are you going to have a meeting with him once a week? Is it going to be a monthly meeting? What's your plan going to be for management of this guy?
So, yeah, I'm basically his line manager.
Right.
So to begin with, there'll be weekly meetings. My power over him really is I design the strategy.
Right.
So I can't legally get involved in day-to-day policing matters. I can't phone him up and say, oh, you need to charge that person, arrest that. I can't do any of that, and rightly so, because I'm a politician. I could abuse those powers.
Yeah.
But what I can do is write strategies about how I want the policing to be across Greater Manchester. What are our priorities? What aren't our priorities? So all the hate crime will be deprivatised.
Yeah.
It'll still be on the legal statute books.
So what's he called, this guy, by the way?
Stephen Watson.
So it's kind of his meeting here, Stephen. Pleased to see you. Right. Hate crime.
Deprivatised.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's next on the agenda?
Stop and search knife crime.
Stop and search knife crime.
Yeah.
This is me asking you, Steve.
That's priority. That's now a priority. You'll be stopping more. I want to see an increase in stop and search everywhere.
All right. So he'll be saying, yeah, the stop and search is this week too far.
I'll be writing his priorities.
Right.
So that first meeting will be, this is your new plan for Greater Manchester Police.
Yeah.
That's your plan. Read it. Any questions?
Male policemen in dresses.
Yeah. No. That won't be in there.
No, he says there aren't any at that point.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay. I just wanted to get a vision. I just wanted to give the viewers a glimpse into how the meeting would go between Nick and the chief constable. And you just saw it then. So so sort of kind of stay.
Who watches this rubbish between me and you? Honestly.
We just reenacted your first meeting with the chief constable of Great Manchester Police. Moving from the police, we moved to crime, obviously connected, and again, three stories, two of them tragic, one kind of bizarre, but all sending a message really. So the first one is something that a lot of people will be familiar with, but if you could remind our gentle viewers what this is about, which is the Kenny Carter murder trial, and why is this important?
So Kenny Carter, 16-year-old white kid from Trafford, murdered, and the other kids who murdered him are in court today. The court case starts today. The reason why this is important for me is how do we stop kids stabbing each other to death? Because that's the problem. And for people who are thinking, well, I'm white, it doesn't really affect me and my kids. This was a white kid. So white people are being stabbed to death as well. And
Trafford's a relatively affluent and sought after area as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, if you think this is just the ghetto and black people stabbing each other, no, it's not. It's spreading now in every walk of life, in every area of Greater Manchester. And we need to be aware of that because our children are at risk. How do we tackle this? Well, we just talked about the meeting with Chief Constable. To begin with, it's ramping up stop and search. I want people in Greater Manchester who carry knives scared stiff that today's the day they get stopped and searched. Not because they pulled that out, but because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time and the police are there and we're going, we're searching you guys. And that's how we stop people carrying knives. It's that fear of being caught. At the moment, there's hardly any fear of being caught.
So if I was a youth carrying a knife, or an adult carrying a knife in Stretford, and if I was stopped by the police and they found a knife on me, what would you ask the Chief Constable to do with that person?
Well, obviously they're arrested and prosecuted.
Right, okay. And can you be arrested and prosecuted for carrying a knife?
Yes, it's illegal.
Okay.
If the blade is over 3 inches, it's a criminal offence.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So if I was walking along with a kitchen knife...
Criminal offence.
Even though I was just coming home to cut myself a slice of bread?
Yeah.
It's a criminal offence?
Criminal offence. The only exceptions would be if you're a chef and you have chef knives and they're wrapped up and they're in a bag you're carrying.
Yeah, because I was going to say, if I went to Tesco and bought myself a bread knife, put it in my basket, my bag, and then was walking home and stopped.
Yeah. You'd have a receipt saying you just bought a knife. It's in your shopping. But if you take that knife out when you bought it and put it straight in your waistband, that's not that you'd be arrested and prosecuted because
Yeah.
you may have bought it with your shopping, but there's no need for you to carry your kitchen knife in your waistband.
Yeah.
Same with chefs, and same with a plumber who's got a Stanley knife. A plumber with a Stanley knife should know you don't carry that Stanley knife in your pocket.
Yeah.
You carry it in your bag.
Yeah.
So when you stopped and you go for your tools, well, I expect to see a Stanley knife with your tools. But if you're on a night out and you've got it in your pocket, oh, it's left over from
Yeah,
work.
I'm a plumber. I just yeah.
Those
You gotta get rid of
excuses.
it.
No,
Although a Stanley knife doesn't have a 3-inch blade.
no, but that comes under offensive weapon then.
Oh,
So-
okay.
so-
you know this stuff very
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So there's two types of criminality. So it's offensive weapon,
Yeah.
which is any knife, anything, but you get arrested for a knife crime if it's over 3 inches.
Right.
Um,
So how many people have been arrested for carrying a knife in Manchester in the last year?
I don't know the figures, but it won't be that high
Yeah.
because Theresa May, 14 years ago, made the police reduce stop and search. So again, a Tory Home Secretary dramatically reduced stop and search across the country because they didn't want to be called racist. Who are the biggest losers of not being called racist? Young black men are dying in pools of their own blood because white Tory politicians didn't want to be called racist. So
That's a really good point.
as a Tory politician, a white female Tory politician, my life's a bit easier now.
Yeah.
And if you guys kill each other on the streets, at least I'm not being called hurty words.
Yeah.
That is the real outcome of our anti-racism policy in this country. Anti-racism leads to more young black men dying on the streets.
I've got a question here, and I don't want to go abroad because we're trying to stay in Manchester, but Rudy Giuliani
Yep.
dramatically changed crime in New York
Yes, he
City.
did in
the
the
mayor of
80s.
New York City. How did he do that? And are there lessons that you would
Yeah.
take from that and put into Manchester?
Yeah, he took a zero tolerance approach, which means if you do anything, police interaction. You drop litter, police interaction. You jump the subway and don't pay your ticket, arrested. And it's heavy at the beginning, but what you do, I mean, you might not know this. Our tram system in Greater Manchester.
Yeah.
The official stats from the metro company itself says up to 20% of people who use the metro
Don't pay.
don't pay.
I can believe that.
20%. How much lost revenue is that? So anyway, so if we stop those people doing that, I mean, on the trams and arrested them and prosecuted them, those people would be arrested and prosecuted, would also have outstanding warrants, would also be wanted for assault, would also be carrying knives and drugs, because the people who commit low-level crime and antisocial behaviour also commit higher stuff as well. That's what Giuliano realised, and that's how we reduced
So
it.
he said to the police there, if you see anybody doing
Anything.
arrest them,
Yeah.
caution them,
Yes.
whatever it might be.
Yeah, graffiti, urinating,
Yeah.
dropping litter.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you arrest people dropping litter, but you prosecute them, you get a fine.
Yeah.
You tell people in this area, we accept no antisocial behaviour in this area now,
Yeah.
and we're going to clamp down on everything. That sends a message in that community, in that city, that, oh, I better be in my best behaviour here.
Yeah.
I used to graffiti, and then because no one stopped me doing that, I then started breaking into cars.
Yeah.
Because no one stopped me doing that, I now mug people, and because no one stopped me doing that, I've
Yeah.
now murdered somebody.
Yeah.
That's how you stop the big crimes from happening, by dealing with them at the bottom. Now this takes many years to kick in to stop, for it to start having an impact on the big stuff, but you need a plan. No one can reduce crime over a year.
Yeah.
You need to be looking at least a 5-year plan.
Yeah. Because he transformed New York, didn't he?
Yes.
It was a no-go zone in the
Yeah.
70s, I think it was,
Yeah.
and he transformed it. What about people who, when the dog does a poo, don't pick up the poo
Yeah.
in a little bag? What would you do with them?
Again, they get prosecuted now. That's a £80 fine.
But do they ever prosecute somebody for doing that?
The prosecution is the fine. So they get fined, £80 fine. If they don't pay that fine, they get prosecuted.
Yeah.
Not all councils. Councils will fine you for that. But the chances of you getting caught are so slim that...
But that's the problem in Manchester. You never see any coppers.
Yeah. Well, coppers won't enforce that anyway, because the councils enforce that now.
No,
so coppers
but you would make the coppers enforce that.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we would be doing dog poo, but
if it's zero tolerance,
it is zero tolerance. I don't know if the police have the powers. I'd have to see where those powers reside now.
I see.
Have those powers?
It's a form of littering, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not even sure if the police can do for littering anymore now. I'm not. I'd have to look up where those powers now reside.
Yeah.
I know the councils have them, but do the police still have them, but just don't use them? I don't know.
Okay.
So I'd have to look at. But if they still have those powers, then our police will be finding you for anything like that because
Right.
it's zero tolerance.
Okay, I just wanted to test your knowledge on that one. So the Kenny Carter issue for you is the fact that stabbing is happening now, it's not under control, and the way we're policing this this Greater Manchester is allowing this sort of stuff to happen. And that leads us into our second story, which is Prince Walker Ayeni.
Yeah.
Moss Side, stabbed a few days from
A
his
few days ago, yeah.
Now, just before you comment on this, I lived in Moss Side when I was 18 or 19, because I was at University of Manchester. This was in the 80s. And I know you don't believe it, viewers, but that is my age. And we had a flat in the Crescents. Do you remember the Crescents?
Yeah.
Crescents for our younger viewers were massive blocks that were built in Moss Side in the shape of a crescent. The idea would be kind of a beautiful social, and it just became an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
There were muggings. The structure of the way it worked was people were being assaulted in dark alleyways.
Yeah. It was all back ones, dead ends.
Yeah, it was horrific, and they demolished them. But I actually had a flat as a student with my fellow students in there, and it was a rough place. And when we were there were lots of stabbings. And we now go forward 40 years, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
It's still happening. Young men are being stabbed in Moss Side. And they've changed it. They've demolished the Crescents. They built nice flats now for people to live in. But it's tragic that a 17-year-old man, young black man, was killed there.
For the first couple of years of my life, I lived in Hume, just off Denmark Road, so I know Moss Side.
Yeah, I know
really
Denmark
well.
Road as well.
Yeah.
Do you remember Mallardale Close?
No.
That was another place I had a flat around.
I used to work in a shop on what was it? Summit West. What's that road called? Anyway.
I may have come in and bought a pack of cigarettes from you.
Yeah. So I know Moss Side really well. I've worked in Moss Side. I was raised in Longside. I had friends. I had a girlfriend in Moss Side. This kid, 17 years old, nearly 18, nearly his birthday, stabbed to death by 2 or 3 16-year-olds. They're in court now. They've been arrested. A couple of days ago, another tragedy of how we're allowing this to happen. This has happened over decades for many reasons. Theresa May is part of the problem, and she reduced stop and search across the country. Weak politicians are partly to blame because they allowed the race grifters from the 70s to blame stop and search on being racist. But more black people, more young black men are stopped with stop and search because more young black men are involved in crime to do with drugs, to do with guns, or to do with knives. So,
although you're not allowed to say that.
No, but it's true.
Yeah.
That's why they were stopped more. Old Chinese women are never stopped for stop and search because
Perhaps they should be.
They don't stab anyone to death. So we need to understand why we're stopping people, and because we don't, young black men are dying.
I think if I became mayor, just for my own amusement, I'd ask the police to stop old Chinese women as well.
Maybe we would discover something.
Yes.
They could be the Chinese mafia.
Exactly.
Drug
The most unlikely.
Yes.
I think yes, we need to increase more stop and search for young black men, but also old Chinese women as well, just in case.
Yes.
Yeah. Leave everybody else alone.
Excellent.
That
might be my policy.
Take a note. But give me the credit. Sorry, carry on.
So
So what you're saying, seriously though, what you're saying is, and you're right, crime, violent crime, knife crime is more predominant amongst black people than it is amongst the other race. So there is a direct correlation and a logic to doing that. But as a result of, as you said, Theresa May and other policies, that disproportionality in terms of stop and search has been taken away. Yeah. Because
and then we need to ask, well, why are young black men more likely to carry knives? Part of it is cultural. I remember you telling me a few podcasts ago that your dad always had a machete.
I always had a machete.
Yeah, in this country,
Yeah.
always had a machete.
I've no idea where he got it from.
Yeah.
He always had a machete.
Because he came
Sometimes two
from
machetes.
Trinidad
Yeah.
and they all had machetes.
Correct,
So
yeah.
part of this is cultural. Part of it is immigration. The vast majority, the vast influx of new migrants from the Caribbean, from Africa, from other countries who are more culturally prone to carry knives and use violence and stab people.
Yeah.
So all these things have happened at the same time that the police have been told to reduce stop and search on black people because of cowardice of politicians. So, and then we've also got rap culture, urban culture, basically American black culture coming over here as a heavy influence, which is more around respect and violence, and we don't shoot people in this country as much as we stab them, only because we don't have guns as much. So in America, you disrespected me, I'll shoot you in the head, I'll pop a cap. In this country, I'll stab you. Yeah, so I'm down with the youth, me.
I think you'll get the youth vote given that. But can I ask a question? And bear in mind, I've been branded a racist a number of times on this show. You said something interesting. You said, well, why do black people commit more knife crime or whatever it might be? Is it the job of the police to actually ask that question?
No, it's politicians' job.
Right. Okay.
Politicians' job to ask why, so they can start putting in policies to try to reduce that in the cohort we know are committing those types of crimes.
Yes.
There's no point having a anti-knife policy that works with everybody in the community. No, we don't need to be working with 50, 60, 70 year olds. We need to be working with the young ones. So we need to understand the demographic so we can have solutions aimed at that demographic.
Yeah, because there's two separate issues here, aren't there? There's it's cause and effect. The police are meant to treat the cause. They're not meant to deal... Sorry, the effect. They're not meant to deal with the cause.
Yes.
So I can't see how stop and search should have been reduced for black people, because that effectively emasculates the police from doing their job.
Yeah.
Their job we're paying them for is to deal with what is happening, the reality of what is happening.
Yeah.
Not to try and analyse and be political in that process. And that kind of blurring of the line between those two things is what is causing the problem.
It is, and that's because the police have political overlords.
Yes, yeah.
And that's where the confusion comes from.
Yeah.
Now, how am I going to get around this problem of being called a racist and a Nazi and having riots in Moss Side? Will be I'm going to have mini referendums in neighbourhoods like Moss Side.
Okay.
And it'll be on the polling day of the local election, so it'll be official. You'll turn up to vote in Moss Side and you'll be given another ballot paper saying, do you want more or less stop and search in your area in Moss Side?
Yeah.
And if the people of Moss Side vote for more stop and search, they get it.
Right.
If they vote for less the same amount of stop and search, that's what they get. But when their children get stabbed to death, don't come complaining to the police or the mayor because we offered you solutions, you turned them down. But I know from first-hand experience, every parent in Moss Side will be ticking that box.
I was going to say, what are your instincts about...
More stop and search.
Yeah, I think that will be the case. I think that will be the case in all areas.
All areas.
Yeah, I think that will be the case in all areas. But that's...
Parents are worried sick their children are not going to come home.
Yeah, yeah.
So, of course, have the police stop people and catch knives, because my child might be a bit embarrassed being stopped and searched. It's not a nice process. But I'd rather my child goes through that than seeing him for the last time in the morgue.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because just what you said now just brings something very much at home to mind, which is that my son lives in London and he lives in Stockwell, which is south of the river, next to Brixton. And Anna is genuinely worried when he goes to London about him, because she reads about the stabbings. A lot of them there was a recent murder, I think, in Stockwell. London. Yeah. And it's a sad state of affairs, that, because I would say that 20 years ago that wasn't a concern. It probably was 30 or 40 years ago. I think there was more violence there. It seemed to have stopped, and now it seems to be happening again, doesn't it? And the same seems to be happening in Manchester, judging from this. Yeah. It's increasing all over the country. I think over the last 7 years, under Andy Burnham, I think violent crime has increased by 79%. I hope he's mentioned that in his manifesto. No, he hasn't. We'll raise it for him in a minute. Yeah, we'll help him. The next story, again, these are recent stories, last 2 days in the Manchester Evening News. And I think that the shocking thing about this story is when I first read it, it didn't really surprise me. It didn't really shock me. It's something that I think people nowadays will read it and be relatively interested. But I would have said 10 years ago, it would have been a major news story. I think now, and maybe you can explain why, for some reason, it no longer is. And this is that by sheer accident, the police were either alerted to or discovered themselves a torso, a human torso wrapped in plastic at a Salford Nature Reserve, Kersal wetlands. They don't know who it is. They're looking for the parts, because I'm assuming the reason this has been done, if you watch the movies, is you take away the head and the hands and then they can't identify this person. So this story is interesting. It's obviously horrific that somebody somewhere in Manchester has been killed. They've been dismembered, wrapped in plastic, and the police are now bumbling around trying to find other bits. What does this tell you about where we are in society and in Manchester particularly?
This sounds like a plot from Goodfellas, where a gangster hit, chop him up, wrap him in plastic, and we'll put him in a swamp, and it'll decompose over the next couple of years, and we'll be fine. And that's what this sounds like. It sounds like a gangster hit. The head's missing, the arms and legs are missing. All they've got is the torso. They're now searching for the other parts of the body. They have no idea who this man is. Who would have believed that our society would fall so low that this is happening now? We're now finding dismembered bodies now, chopped up in quite a fashion. I mean, this takes some doing. It's, the ability to do it, the ability to transport bodies, to know where to hide them because they're going to rot away. This takes some thought, consideration and planning. I'm curious, if this was a man who's just killed his wife, well, they tend not to go to these extreme lengths. This would be, he'd run away, they'd find a body at the house, it'd be a manhunt. This now looks like organised crime. Organised crime now, which is eliminating either competition or people they don't like in such a brutal manner. And we need to ask ourselves, is this the first time? Because like I said before about that police officer, you rarely catch someone the first time they break the law. So, and this torso was found by accident by someone walking the dog, probably. It's always a dog walker. But how many other bodies are in this wetland? And that's what the police should be looking at.
What are they going to uncover if they keep searching? Are they going to uncover more than one?
It's just this how far we're falling as a society.
And as the Mayor of Manchester, what is the position with gangs in this? I mean, we hear about Romanian gangs, we hear about West Indian gangs, we hear about, Italian. What are there large gangs within Manchester, criminal gangs that are organised and... there is. They're officially now called organised crime groups. There's quite a few in Greater Manchester, and some of them are multi-million pound organisations, and the people on the top of them have got £5,000 suits who don't even speak to anybody who's a criminal anymore now, because they've moved up they're now, look like a respectable businessman, and they've got so many layers between them and what goes on that, you've seen the mafia films. That's how it all works. These groups, they don't get their hands dirty anymore.
Exactly, but we will know who some of them are. It's just catching them. We need in the UK, we need more investment in the serious and organised crime group. Basically, SOCA, which is basically the British FBI. We need more investment in them.
Is that part of the Greater Manchester Police?
No.
So you wouldn't have jurisdiction over that?
No, they're a national force to deal with organised crime. They have to be national because these groups work everywhere. So it's just going to be a Greater Manchester thing.
Because the FBI is a federal organisation as opposed to a local organisation.
Exactly. Greater Manchester Police will fit into that, and Greater Manchester will have police officers on who work in there, and there may be some of those officers working in Greater Manchester Police to share information and do joint stuff, but they have to be a national organisation. We need to be doing more on this serious organised crime. because that's where a lot of our low-level crime comes from. Who do you think's killing each other over turf wars to sell cannabis or drugs? Who do you think's chopping up that body? Who do you think is doing all the bank fraud and the benefit fraud? Who's bringing the human slaves in to work in warehouses and car washes? Who are controlling the prostitutes? It's all organised crime. All the counterfeit goods in Cheetah Mill, organised crime. And especially in Cheetah Mill, what a lot of people don't know, if you go there shopping, some of the money from that goes into Islamic terrorism. So we need to get a grip on this, but this is bigger than just Greater Manchester Police. But we'll be looking at that, working in partnership with these national agencies as well.
Okay. And just going back to the mayoral campaign, are you aware of any of the last 6 things we've talked about, which are quite serious, and maybe not the one about accused of stealing a police uniform? How has Andy Burnham pronounced on these?
Silence. Andy Burnham doesn't discuss anything to do with crime in the police. And it's worked to a certain extent because nobody knows he's the police crime commissioner. He doesn't talk about crime.
But he's technically responsible for a lot of this stuff, isn't he?
He's not technically responsible, he's legally responsible. The Mayor of Greater Manchester is the Police Crime Commissioner and has all the powers of the Police Crime Commissioner. On day one...
So he doesn't comment on any of this stuff at all?
No.
Is that a deliberate policy or
yes.
just... And he said that, has he?
No. It has to be deliberate policy because he doesn't talk about crime. There's no brownie points in talking about crime because crime's going the wrong way. So he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want his name and his face next to a picture of a dead kid. The mayor says this.
So he said nothing about Kenny Carter or Prince Walker Ayeni?
No. So on day one when he became mayor...
I'm quite shocked by that.
Well, this is what he did. On day one becoming mayor, he gave the responsibility for police and crime to his deputy. So now any questions about police and crime, he goes, speak to my deputy about that. They're in charge of police and crime. If I'm elected mayor, I will not be giving away responsibility for being the police crime commissioner. I will be the police crime commissioner because we don't need a mayor who gives the most important job of being mayor to his deputy.
Yeah.
Why not sack him and just have the deputy?
Yeah. Because surely for both of those young boys stabbed, he should have been at a microphone saying this is outrageous and we're going to apprehend the killers and we're going to do this and we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Because people want to hear that, don't they, from the person in charge?
Yeah. He should be sat with the parents of those 2 dead kids going, I want to increase stop and search. Would you be in favour of that as the parent of a dead child?
Yeah.
And on TV then going, yes, start it today because this would have saved my son's life.
Yeah.
And that's how he'd get around of being called a racist and Nazi. And he would just go, I'm doing what the parents of dead children want me to do.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the rest of the community on board, by listening to parents who have lost their children.
I think that is scandalous that he doesn't pronounce on these things or talk about these things. I didn't realise.
But once I buy a new bus, he's there for that.
Oh, yeah.
Next to a yellow bus, smiling, thumbs up.
That's kind of easy.
I've got a bus.
Yeah, that's easy, isn't it?
We need a crime-fighting mayor, not a bus conductor mayor.
Yeah. It makes you sound like Batman.
Yes.
Actually. Nick Buckley's secret identity, we've now found out. He's actually Bruce Wayne. We're moving on now to child sexual exploitation. I don't mean we're moving on to child sexual exploitation. We're going to talk about examples of that in Manchester. And your point here is quite interesting because what you're actually saying here is this is a particular case that's just come across. The suspect has been named in a situation of child rape, 6 counts of rape, 4 counts of sexual assault, and 1 count of sexual activity, which I don't know if it's the same child. But your point here is that let's not just assume this is going to be a Pakistani man living in one of the northern are they cities? Northern cities of Greater Manchester. It was a white man from Trafford.
White man from Trafford.
Trafford's doing very badly
on this.
On this, and this is an area I live in. And I thought it was...
I did that on purpose just to annoy you.
I thought it was middle class and the place to live. And clearly it's not.
The reason why I picked this story is because I could have picked 50 stories from the evening news over last year of Asian Pakistani men of Pakistani heritage committing grooming gang, raping children. I could have found loads of those stories because there's loads of them out there, and all that's true. And we should be hammering those people. In fact, we should be deporting the ones who weren't born in this country. So I'm not soft on this at all.
Right. Okay.
But I wanted to talk about this story because he's a white man, and he's an old 70-year-old white man.
Has he done this whilst he was 70, or was
No, some of these are historic, but he's.
Is he the same child?
I can't remember. I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah.
But the reason I want to talk about this is because if we're constantly concentrating on one demographic, which is usually men in general, what most people don't know is the stats on women committing sexual abuse to children is rising and has been for several decades now. It's not because we have male perverts identifying as women.
Well, I was going to say that'll be part of it.
Yeah, that's a tiny part of it. But we're arresting more and more women now, biological women, for sex abuse.
I don't think that's right. I don't agree with you on this. You've told me this before.
Yeah, but
I just don't think women have the same sexual drive as men. So I don't think they want to do the things that men do to young children.
We're arresting more and more women doing it. It's in the paper all the time.
That's probably because the police are too lazy to arrest the men. It's easy to arrest a woman, given the KPIs aren't being monitored as we've discovered. So there's no metrics to show that.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. But what are these sexual assaults that women can perform on children? Are you saying, sorry, was it sexual assaults on children?
On children. Yeah. So we've got many examples now in this country of nurses abusing babies and young children.
But how? Sorry, I don't want to go into too much graphic detail. They can't penetrate them or anything.
No, they could do if they wanted to, but I don't think it's for that young. They're not. It's all the other stuff. It seems every week now there's a female school teacher being sacked and arrested for sex with pupils at schools. It's not the same crime
but that's borderline acceptable though, isn't it?
It shouldn't be acceptable at all.
No, I'm saying it's borderline acceptable. I'm not saying...
But it's not acceptable.
But a young female school teacher and a mature 16-year-old...
It's not illegal if they're 16. So it's under 16s.
Okay.
So it's not acceptable.
Yeah. The dynamic is very different though to a male school teacher having sex with a young schoolgirl, I think.
You may think that, but for me, it's black and white. It's black and white. The answer is no. Just because you're female.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's correct, by the way.
You don't get a pass because you're female.
I don't want to get in trouble here, but what I'm saying is the act of a young man having sex with an older woman.
It's more socially acceptable. So,
if
a 14-year-old girl is being abused by her 25-year-old maths teacher, where it's horrendous.
It is.
If a 14-year-old boy is sleeping with his 25-year-old maths teacher, we go, nice one.
Well, I wouldn't go nice one, but I wouldn't think it's as reprehensible as the other way around. But I don't know why.
But that's a social norm.
Yeah, maybe right. Yeah, maybe
but
right.
Again, so the point of this story is, if we keep looking for the same type of offender when it comes to child abuse, and the truth is, there is no ideal demographic of a child abuser. Every group, every sex, every religion, every culture, every country produces child sex offenders.
Yes.
So we need to be looking at everybody all the time, but not in a paranoid sort of way.
Yeah.
So this
I agree.
white man in Trafford, in his 70s, has now been arrested, and I'm raising this not because I don't think Muslim grooming gangs don't exist, because they do, but because I want people to be aware that just because your babysitter isn't a Muslim male, you don't have anything to worry about. Yes, you do. And we all should be putting the protection of children at the top of our list.
Yes.
And always making sure we've got safeguards in place, and we're making sure that no one is abusing any child.
Yes. And I think you're making a really good point here. Safeguarding, which is what I use the terminology, it seems to have gone out the window in the past few years.
Yeah.
The normal conventions and structures we put in place to safeguard all children from all potential adults have gone out the window. Yeah. And recent examples of this, I think, are drag queens turning up at children's primary schools, presenting to, wearing phallic symbols, saying inappropriate things. you go on their Instagram page and they're fetishists and whatever, and they're allowed to go near children now. That things like that happening and part of this is wrapped up in identity politics and everything being acceptable. A lot of the safeguards I think were in place years ago, and I'm sure it applies in Rochdale and with the grooming gangs as well. Those safeguards seem to have gone out the window.
They have, because of this woke nonsense. So we learned from the 80s what was going wrong. So in the 90s we started putting safeguards in place, and it lasted for about 20 years. For the last 10 years we've started giving certain people a veto on safeguarding.
Yes.
We had a council down south last year or two who had a 6-foot rainbow man dressed as a monkey reading storybooks in a library with a 12-inch dildo hanging from his legs. And it's that's like, you are just pushing this here now.
Yeah.
In America, the drag queen story hour, almost every week now, one of those people who do that are being arrested for paedophilia. Not while they're doing the show, but the hard drive's been looked at, they've been arrested in a car with a child.
Yeah.
So not all these people are paedophiles. I don't want to be saying that all drag artists are paedophiles. They're not. But some of them are.
Yeah, but surely it's more likely that they are more likely to have those proclivities given the way they want to behave. Somebody who wants
they're more likely to be a pervert.
Yes. If you have if you enjoy exhibiting sexual non-norms, if you like, you're more likely to have a sexual history, a sexual background, and a sexual proclivity that's different to normal people.
I'd say
but why don't people understand that?
Because, like I said at the beginning of this, your lifestyle is just as important as my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Your lifestyle is just as valuable as my lifestyle. And I think if I think your lifestyle is not as good as mine, that's because I'm a bigot.
Yes, yeah. So now if you said that's not appropriate, you're a bigot.
Yeah.
Somebody wandering around a children's library with a 12-inch dildo hanging from, is not appropriate. But if I say that now, I'm a bigot.
Yeah.
You don't like I don't like trans people or whatever it might be in that situation.
You don't like queer people. You don't like LGBT people. You don't like and it's like no.
Yeah.
I just want children to remain as innocent as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah.
6-year-olds don't need to see twerking and be putting $1 bills in someone's knickers and dildos and it's like, and the argument against it will be, but they don't understand any of that. And do you know what? You're correct. And I don't want them to understand any of that. So stop showing them the shit in the first place. Yeah.
But there's an interesting point there, isn't there? And we talked earlier, we're going to talk later about decorum. What is decorum? I can't remember the correct adjective, but what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. The problem is it's very hard to define, isn't it? So when you say children should be seen twerking, then I say, well why not, Nick? Yeah. What's the problem?
And that's the problem, because we've now become a nation of individuals as opposed to a tribe of people with the shared values, shared community, shared understanding, shared rules. It's now, no, I can live next door to you and have completely different rules to you because I'm different from you.
Yeah. But the thing is, going back to the twerking example, if I say to you, why have you got a problem with, I just happen to run a twerking business, for example. Why have you got a problem with twerking? Because actually, when I have a troupe of twerkers who go out there and they happen to twerk to 5-year-old kids. What's the problem?
My answer would be twerking is a sexual display. It's an African sexual display of showing your backside and your vagina to a potential mate. Why are you doing it to a 6-year-old?
Because it's fun.
It's not fun. It's a sexual invitation.
Correct. And the point you're making there is anything of a sexual nature should not be pushed onto children in any way, shape or form. But that and
same with heterosexual sex.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Anything sexual.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think sometimes on a film you'll see two homosexuals kissing, men or women. And I go, I'll say, I don't want to see that in front of the kids. Kids say, what's the problem? Have you got a problem with gays? I said, no, I don't want to see two heterosexual kissing that way because I don't think it's appropriate and I think it's gratuitous for the purpose of this thing. So if there's gratuitous sex between males and females or same sex, I don't want to see it.
And 6-year-olds never should see it.
And 6-year-olds should never see it as well. But the problem is there's no rule saying that shouldn't be the case, though, is there? Or is there? Is there a law saying that you should not be exhibiting sexual mores to children?
There's laws around this, but they're very nebulous. You could, there is no specific laws. There'll be laws around safeguarding inappropriate behaviour, but
this stuff sneaks through.
This stuff, because you can argue this isn't inappropriate. If you can argue it's not inappropriate behaviour, then you can sneak it through. Me and you would say that is inappropriate. But if the panel and the charity board are going, no, we all find this appropriate, then you can sneak it through.
Yeah.
And it's down to the lack of social norms in our country.
It's down to the deterioration of value systems that we used to hold dear.
Yeah.
And we knew instinctively when something was wrong.
Most people still do.
I think most people still do. In the same way, I think there's an instinct in human. I can't remember what the terminology is. I have read about it. There's a terminology. I can tell you're a man, and I can tell when somebody's a woman as well. I don't need to do a thorough physical examination.
Or to know my pronouns.
Or to know my pronouns. Yeah. I know a man, and I know a woman, and I know a bloke that's dressed as a woman as well. So there's an instinct in human beings to understand certainly things like that, the sex of other members. In the same way dogs can see each other in that situation. A dog can recognise another dog straight away. But there was also another level, which is this isn't right, which is twerking in front of kids. But somehow it's managed to slip through, and people allowing it to happen, even though they know it's wrong.
That's called like a social contagion, where you can be propagandized, if that's a word, into believing something you would have thought 5 years ago was incorrect. There's videos online of people going to university campuses and saying to students, do you think a 12-year-old should be able to get a tattoo? Oh no, they can't make decisions that time. It might ruin their arm and ruin their foot. No. Do you think a 12-year-old should be able to drink alcohol and smoke? Oh no, not smoking, that's damage for your lungs, and drinking, no. Do you think a 12-year-old should be able to change gender and have a medical operation to... Oh yes, by 12 they know their gender. And it's the same person who's gone, and you can see, that makes no sense.
Yes.
But they've been conditioned through a new set of social norms that all those things are still wrong, but not this new one.
Yeah,
because I've been told all my life that's not wrong. So they can answer all those questions correctly, apart from the last one.
Yeah, and they can't see...
They can't see the hypocrisy. No, they can't see it.
Fascinating. But, so the point about this particular case was just there should be safeguards in place, full stop, for everybody.
Everyone is a potential paedophile. Everyone. So we need to make sure we've got safeguards around everybody, not just Pakistani Muslim men.
Understood. That's your good anti-racist statement of the day. It's me that keeps being accused of being a racist, as we know. Now on to a mayoral issue, and you'll be thrilled to know, Nick, that Mayor Andy Burnham launched his campaign this week.
He did, fantastic.
And there's two things here, because he said, what he said was, they said I wouldn't be able to do anything. We've proved them wrong.
Wasn't it? They said we could do nothing, and they were right.
Well, I think there's two. I think he could have also said they said I wouldn't be able to do anything, and they were right.
Yeah.
So he thinks he has done some stuff. I don't think he has done anything. But perhaps more chilling. I know for you particularly, because I know you have a major issue here. The music he played to introduce himself, was he on stage? I don't know. Yeah, on stage.
He was at the Salford Boys and Girls Club.
At the Salford Boys was Penny Lane by the Beatles. And the Beatles are, of course...
He's a Scouser. And I think he played that song just to wind me up, because he heard about my wall.
He's heard about your comment about the wall.
He's heard I'm going to build a wall between Greater Manchester and Merseyside, and the Scousers are going to pay for it.
Yeah. And we'd leave Andy Burnham on the other side of that, wouldn't we? So that's quite insulting. Why not Oasis? Happy Mondays, all the great Manchester bands. Why would he not? The Bee Gees even.
Yeah.
Why the Beatles? Not that I've got a problem with the Beatles, but it's just...
I would imagine he had no idea what the song is, but it just shows how incompetent his team is.
Yeah.
That they thought that was an appropriate song.
Yeah.
I can't see him picking that because he's not a stupid man.
Yeah.
He's always been accused of being a Scouser. He would have gone, oh, we can't play that.
Yeah. So you think that was played without his understanding or knowledge? And also, what's the relevance? What is Penny Lane to do with
I have no idea.
Manchester Salford Boys Club? What's she trying to say here?
I'm going to have Penny Lane spray painted on the wall, on his side.
When did you launch it, by the way?
Was it Monday, a couple of days ago?
Oh, it was Monday. So it was after we drew with Liverpool and after the FA Cup match where we thrashed them soundly. So maybe he's still smarting about that. Not that I think he has any interest in football. I would imagine...
Well, he's an Everton fan, and he only talks about football because he's the man of the people.
Yeah, he's not... I mean, I remember kids like Andy Burnham at school.
Yeah.
We used to beat them up and leave them in the corner, and they had no interest in football. They were in the chess club, you know, they didn't know anything about football, but they pretended they liked football to try and be in with the in crowd, didn't they?
Yeah. I need to tell you off for beating people up at school because of football, so don't do that again.
I was actually in the chess club, unfortunately, so I was probably more like that at that point. So I don't think he's a football fan. I don't think he's an Everton fan. I think he just says what the hell he thinks.
Every major politician tells you what football team is.
Yes, yeah. Because I remember David Cameron did it, and then he got it wrong.
He got it wrong.
He said, I think he said something like, "I support Arsenal," and then he said Chelsea later on.
No, he said there's two teams who have roughly the same colours, purple, burgundy, and something.
Was it West Ham or something?
Yeah, and he got him mixed up. He said, "I'm a Aston Villa supporter."
Yes, Aston Villa, and then he said West Brom or something.
Yeah, and he got the colours mixed up because he was not speaking off the script. He liked about football, but it makes him a man of the people.
I think he's the same. So, they said I wouldn't be able to do anything. We've proved them wrong. What's he done, Nick? What are his successes?
Well, in that speech, he named two of them. Greater Manchester Police is the most improved police force in the country. Well, of course it is, Andy, because your first 4 years you drove it into the ground. It went into special measures. It was the second time ever in the history of the UK a police force went into special measures under your watch, and you got warned year after year this was coming, and you did nothing. So it went into special measures. You've got a new constable. You're out of special measures now, and it's improving. Well, it's easy to improve when you hit rock bottom. Everything's up from there. So that, he shouldn't be claiming credit for that. And the second thing he claimed credit for was the B network, the buses. Cheaper fares, well, it is cheaper fares for some people, but I've got people from Bolton and Oldham telling me their bus fares have gone up because on their bus route they got a really good deal. But now it's a set fare everywhere. Their bus tickets and their monthly price of tickets have gone up. So there's always winners and losers. So some people's bus prices have gone down. But what he doesn't tell people is the B network has got so many years to increase passenger numbers by 30%. Otherwise the scheme goes bankrupt. And if it goes bankrupt, who's going to pay for it? I'll tell you who'll pay for it. The council taxpayer, who are already subsidising everyone's bus fare at the moment anyway. Yeah. But we'll be left with the bill and we're going to have to save the buses. But he won't be around in 3-4 years' time if it goes bankrupt. So it's a bit too soon for him to be claiming credit for the B network. The jury's out on that one. But we need to talk about his failures. So what are his failures? The first failure is the police going to special measures, crimes increasing, drug crimes increasing, violent crimes increasing, assaults are increasing, sexual assaults are increasing all over the last 7 years while he's been in charge. Police going into special measures. Realistically, that should have been enough for him to resign going into special measures. How we allowed him to get away with that, and then we voted him back in the year later. I don't know how he got away with that. He's Mr. Teflon for that.
But he's not a liar, isn't he? Because they said I wouldn't be able to do anything. We've proved them wrong. Because he has done something.
He's made it worse.
He's made things shit, hasn't he?
So, he has, yeah.
Yeah. So
his greatest failure up to now, apart from the police, his number 2 will be the clean air zone. So the clean air zone, for people who don't know, is our version of ULEZ. He tried to sneak it in. He put cameras all over Greater Manchester. This was going to be the biggest in the country.
How much did that cost us?
The price at the moment is, I've seen figures for 300 million. Cameras everywhere. He signed contracts. I think it's 300,000 a month just for to pay the people who are running the cameras, which have never been turned on yet.
They're still being paid 300,000.
Yeah, for the last 2 years. Yeah, because they've signed contracts. So you're going to pay us anyway, mate. So he's wasting so much money. That's been his biggest disaster. He had this idea, no one wanted it. The people told him they didn't want it. He lost his bottle. Postponed the scheme. It's still postponed now. He's saying he's going to scrap it now. Wasted hundreds of millions of pounds. He's now said, I've decided to clean up the air now in Greater Manchester without charging anybody. So why didn't you do that in the third? If you can do it now, why didn't you do that three? I want clean air. So clean up the air without charging people, you idiot.
How's he going to do that?
Electric buses and tweak this and tweak that. He's just saving face. A load of rubbish. There's hardly anything wrong with our air anyway. A couple of trunk roads have got a problem. Electric buses will solve that. But yeah, there isn't really an issue. But he wanted a huge project like the Clean Air Zone because he thought this green agenda was popular. And it would have been an income stream for the mayor that he could have spent on his pet projects to make him look wonderful.
Right.
It was a funding stream for him. But that's gone now. But him to say now, oh, I'm going to do it without charging anybody. Well, you should have done that 3 years ago.
Yeah, why didn't you think of that first
and
time?
spent the £300 million on the police and stopped kids being stabbed to death.
Yeah.
That's what you should have done. So his failures are huge.
Is there no chance you can get in a debate with this guy?
No.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. If there was actually, like they do the thing with the presidents where they
yeah, the big ones I won't be invited to. There was one yesterday on transport, didn't get invited to it because I could have talked about the Clean Air Zone. Wasn't invited. I'm going to one or two that there's a chance he may turn up at one of them that I'm at. All the big ones I won't be invited. He'll be at the big ones I won't.
That's not fair.
It's not fair, is it?
Yeah. We need to get him on the rack, ask him why he played the Beatles song.
Yep.
Say to him, yes, you are right. They said you couldn't do anything. In fact, you've actually done a load of really crap things and you've spent a load of our money as well.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do about that?
One of the worst things he ever said, which I don't think he's ever really answered, was when the Rochdale grooming gang report came out. And he commented on it to the press. And he was saying it was a tragedy that these young women had been abused. They were fucking children, Andy. They weren't young women. They were children. And he said young women. It's like, I don't...
Almost trying to make it sound better.
Well, I don't know if that was a slip of the tongue or if it was a mistake or if he was trying to downplay it. I have no idea, but it's like they weren't young women. They were children. Say it as it is.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask him about that if I got a chance.
That's a really good question. Yeah. He didn't correct himself later on or say these are children.
Not that I've seen.
Yeah.
And, I've looked into it. Not that I've seen.
I mean, one of the things you've mentioned here, and I think it's important, you've looked online for his manifesto.
Yep.
And you've been unable to find it.
And
I think earlier in the year, I looked for his manifesto and I found one, but it was the one from 4 years ago. And what this says to me, you're going to tell me what it says to you. What it says to me is, this is a guy who's so arrogant, who knows he's going to win, just because he'll get the Labour vote that he can't even be asked to produce a manifesto for the people to tell them what he's going to do. His arrogance is so strong, his belief that he's going to win is so strong, he can't be bothered. I'm not even going to tell you guys what I'm going to do to you, what I'm going to do for you, because I'm going to win. So you can get stuff.
That's what it seems like. Now, he had his launch on Monday, so that should have been the day he released his manifesto. He launched his campaign and talked about parts of his manifesto. Where is his manifesto? I've been Googling it for days and days and days. I've been on all his social media.
Yeah.
I've been on his website. I've been on the mayor's website. And I cannot find a written manifesto. All I can find is, this is my pledge. Here's a snippet. I want a document to look at.
Yeah.
I released my manifesto 6 months ago because I wanted to give people time to look at what I wanted to do. He needs to release his manifesto so people cleverer than me can interrogate it
Yeah.
and see what's in it and
Yeah.
does it make any sense and what are his numbers. But if he has released it, he's released it in such a sneaky way that no one can really find it unless you know exactly where to look.
Yeah. They said I wouldn't be able to do anything. That includes producing a manifesto.
Yeah. That reminds me of that joke where you get comedians on TV who say, when I was at school, I told my teacher I wanted to be a comedian. Yeah, they're not laughing now, are they?
Yeah. So, his failures, you mentioned the police, cars, attacks on motorists. Apparently he's got 2 new policies out now.
Oh, this came out yesterday
Right.
from a speech he made.
Not on his manifesto.
Can't read his manifesto. Might be in his manifesto. If someone can find it, drop me a line with the link so I can read it. In debates, hustings he was at yesterday, he mentioned 2 things. The first thing is something called school streets, which I've never heard of before, so I googled it. School streets is a project where you close the road the school is on certain times of the day. It sounds nice for the pupils coming and going from the school, but if you're, what school can you close the road? What about people who live on that street? And common sense tells me straight away, so what do all the parents do? They then drive on the street next door, and that becomes chock-a-block. We have issues outside especially primary schools, outside all our primary schools with inconsiderate parents parking, being a danger to kids. This we need to stop. There's a simple answer to this, and the answer was around 15 years ago when I was looking at things like this for Manchester City Council. So the issue is we can't get traffic wardens there in numbers, and plus the threats then to the traffic wardens, and there's arguments, and nobody wants that. I get that. But 15 years...
I think most people would like to see threats against traffic wardens.
Yes, I wouldn't.
I had a campaign. You wouldn't, but I had a campaign for a short time, which I didn't publicise. But the idea was every time you drive past the traffic warden, you beat your horn for quite a long period of time. And I wanted other people to do it. I think at the time I was on Twitter, and I suggested on Twitter. So the entire day, all the traffic warden would hear was constant horns, basically. Unfortunately, it didn't take off.
It didn't, Matt. Let me flesh this out for you. So,
before you do, can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
So you said, yes, everybody... Once again, I think you're making assumptions that I'm not sure are correct. You said everybody wants parents not to park outside schools for the safety of children or whatever. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How many children are killed per year outside schools?
Hardly any.
Right, okay.
Yeah, hardly any.
So why do we need school streets? Why are you so...
It's the fear of a child being killed because of badly parked cars and
Yes, it's a
parking
fear,
on
but
zigzags.
it's like COVID.
Yeah, but also, if it's illegal to park on zigzag lines and stuff like that, then it needs enforcing.
Yeah, you need traffic wardens.
If we're not going to enforce it, then get rid of that law. Because what I don't want to do is have laws we decide we're going to break.
Right.
Because the laws I decide to break will be different to the laws you decide to break.
Can I just say that we had this experience when our kids were young at primary school, Springfield Primary School in Sale. Parents were doing all that. They just made sure a traffic warden was there between 7:30 and 9 o'clock every morning. Stopped.
It did while that traffic warden was there.
Yes, but that's you pay the traffic warden to be there every day.
Yeah.
And he was there every day.
I've got a better solution. A much better solution. Cheaper, quicker, easier, will get more done. 15 years ago, we had the technology because we had a car that did that. It had an AMPR camera built into the little car, and it would drive past, and we never did it, it could drive past a school, automatically record every number plate of anyone who's parked illegally, and you'd get a fine in the post. So you could drive past a school, you could do 30 tickets in that 30-second drive. You then don't stop, you then go to the next school down the road. You do the same thing there, you do the same thing there. Parents would get tickets in the post.
Yeah.
So you don't get to see a traffic warden and go, well, I'm not parking there today. You never know when it's driving past. And we would create an environment where parents dropping kids off would start obeying the rules.
Yeah.
Because you never know when you're getting an £80 ticket in the post because they're driving past there all the time now. That's how we fix that problem. So, but what Andy Burnham's doing now is we've got a problem outside schools. So a bit like you broke your toe. The answer to the pain in your toe is I'm going to amputate your leg. well, you won't have
Yeah.
pain in your toe anymore, will
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
The answer to your broken toe is to fix that little toe, not to amputate the whole leg. And that's what he's doing. We've got a problem outside schools with inconsiderate parents, antisocial behaviour and illegal parking.
Yeah.
Well, let's fix that. We don't need a hammer to crack a nut.
Correct.
Let's deal with those issues and not have silly projects where we can't drive on that road now twice a day in certain times. So we all park on the road next door.
Well, it just creates congestion, causes problems further
Yes.
out, and potentially makes that accident happen in a different place.
Yeah, exactly.
But the point I will make is this.
Yeah.
Firstly, this is what I said to Andy Burnham. Can you evidence why we need to do this?
Yeah.
Because how many children are injured or killed
Yeah.
outside schools? And I bet he couldn't give me the answer.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would say, why not just do what happened when our kids were young, have a traffic warden outside for an hour and a half every morning. People will not park there. I can guarantee that happens. Thirdly, have a camera up. I mean, you suggested a small car. You drive. I think you suggested that because you wanted to drive that small car.
No.
Nick, I think you were visualising yourself in that small car. Have a camera up. Take pictures. Just have it up permanently. It will take pictures at certain times of the day. If your car's there, you get a ticket.
Yeah.
Easy. You don't need to close a road down.
Exactly. The simple solution to this, not this hammer to crack a nut.
Yeah, exactly. And it's again this awful totalitarian approach to problems in society now. Rather than actually just dealing with it in a reasonable way, they have to bring in draconian measures to change things. It's like this, the thing where they're trying to slow the roads down. They put big flower things at the end. What's it called?
Low traffic neighbourhoods.
Low traffic neighbourhoods. Destroying our ability to drive around.
But that's their aim. So the aim on these safer school streets really won't be about the danger to kids, because there really isn't when you look at the stats. What they're trying to do is get you out of your car. They want you on public transport because it doesn't want the bus network going bankrupt. It's all about forcing you out of your car. We'll force those parents to walk to school with their kids. We're going to force you. So when we're thinking they don't understand anything, we'll drive the traffic to the next street. They don't care. It's about forcing you out of your car.
I remember at primary school when I used to take the kids, there was one woman who used to turn up in a big car, drop her kids off. She'd still be in a dressing gown. She'd drop them off in the yard. She'd stand chatting with the other mums in a dressing gown. And then she'd get back in the car and go home. I think people should have the right to do that.
Oh, I don't think they should. I don't. She is a bad parent.
She had her slippers on.
She is showing her child the wrong lessons in life.
She had her slippers on.
Yeah.
She wasn't barefoot.
But no, but we have people that used to go to supermarkets not that long ago dressed like that. It's
Yeah, but I think
it's the wrong way of teaching your kids respect, self-respect. It's the wrong lessons those parents are teaching their kids.
I love the fact that people do things like that.
Oh,
I think the problem is if you were in charge of the police, zero tolerance would include people in dressing gowns, wouldn't it?
No, I have no concerns over what people wear. And I don't think the state should be dictating to anybody what they wear. But as an individual, I'll tell you, I don't like this.
Yeah.
You look trampy.
Yeah.
Stop it. But I'd never enforce my point of view upon you.
So you're not going to appear on stage next to Andy Burnham in a dressing gown then?
No.
Can
we get back to traffic wardens?
Yeah.
Let me flesh this out for you.
No, hang on. Traffic wardens aren't on this list.
No, but you said you were pressing your horn at traffic wardens.
Yes.
And it sounds like you hate them.
Yeah, because the idea is then that any traffic warden anywhere, all they hear all day
I get that.
is allowed. So it's kind of, and they'll be driven mad.
They will, and then what happens?
I can't do this job anymore because constantly all I can hear, they'll be in bed at night with their hands, ears will be ringing because of the traffic.
What then happens to the movement of the traffic in the city when there's no traffic warden?
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. There'll be a few cars.
People will be parking everywhere. There's a real life example of this. 20 years ago, when I worked for Manchester Council, we had some really heavy snow. And everybody found out, because there's snow on the roads, and especially the city centre, and you can't see the yellow lines, you don't get a ticket. And if you got a ticket, you appeal it. Well, I parked there, I didn't see a yellow line, so then it gets void. For the 3 days we had that snow, Manchester City Centre was a standstill. People parked everywhere. People who normally got the bus into town drove in. It was free parking everywhere. The city centre was closed down for 3 days because of people parking everywhere. Traffic wardens are one of those jobs where we love to hate, but if we didn't have them, things would grind to a halt.
I was in Naples recently, and I had a car. I was driving around Naples.
Oh, bloody hell.
The traffic in Naples, you know Naples.
Yeah, I've been, yeah.
It's horrendous.
Yeah.
Nowhere to park.
Yeah.
But the traffic always kept moving, and I didn't see any traffic wardens. There was one time when I was slightly pulled up onto the side of and a police car drove past, and the guy kind of waved his finger at me, and I went like that, and I drove off.
Yeah.
But I didn't see a traffic warden all the time I was there.
Different culture, different rules, different people.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it works for them.
It wouldn't work here.
Yeah. But anyway, gentle viewers, if you want to resurrect the horn blowing technique for traffic wardens, don't hesitate. I'll start again.
And I do not endorse that message.
So, but to be fair, just supporting you on traffic wardens, when there was a traffic warden outside the school, that worked.
Yeah.
He was there every day. He or she was there every day between 8:15 to 9 o'clock. No problem. Yeah. That's all you need. You don't need flipping school streets. No. It's a nonsense. Anyway, the final topic of the evening, Nick, and this is about the quality of our politicians. And you and I have talked about politicians many times before. However, you've focused in specifically, again, Manchester Evening News, and these are two Tory MPs. Two Manchester MPs.
Great Manchester. One Great Manchester MP, one to be Trafford councillor.
And you've deliberately chosen Trafford again to show how decadent and out of control and hedonistic Trafford is. So the first one is William Ragg, who's the MP for Hazel Grove, Stockport, as we know. And he's the character at the centre of this sexting scam. Yeah. And as I understand it, he was trapped in something called a honey trap, where basically somebody deliberately got involved with him, asked him to send pictures of his penis to them, which he did. Once they had those pictures, they then blackmailed him into giving him the numbers of his other MP colleagues so they could do the same thing to them. And were they doing it for money? I'm not quite sure what the...
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, this could be about money. It could be about state secrets, as in he knows nothing. But if we can end up getting a minister, this is extremely dangerous.
Before you start talking about this, and I know why you want to talk about it, I just want to make a couple of points here. And I know you're going to talk about Jeremy Hunt in a minute and what he said. I don't understand why a man would send a picture of his penis to a woman. It's something that I would not even contemplate, think about, or even think would be remotely attractive to a woman. Secondly, William Ragg, if you've seen a picture of him on TV, is a particularly unattractive man. So why would an unattractive man with probably an unattractive penis think that any woman would be interested in seeing his penis? That's the first bit, which isn't maybe Manchester related. Yeah. That's kind of the first bit. So before you get into your other bits, just tell me, because just from your nodding here, it looks like you don't think that would be a problem. But
so this happens to humans where we think, because we think a certain way, the other person thinks the same sort of way. It's one of the main problems in marriages. We think our wife thinks like us, so therefore she must know what I mean. Well, no, she doesn't, because she's different from you in lots of ways. The issue here is some men seem to be under the understanding that because they like to look at pictures of naked women, any women basically, that therefore it makes perfect sense that women must like to look at pictures of naked men. So why wouldn't you want to look at my penis? What they don't understand is men and women are different. So women's bodies are a lot more beautiful than men's bodies in general.
I think so.
Their curves, everything about them is more beautiful. There's not that much attractive about a man's body unless he's a top 0.5% Chippendale model with ripped abs and stuff like that. And I can understand looking at that going, he's got a fantastic body. I can get
And
that.
as I said to you earlier, I like to look at, if there's a man with a nice physique, I don't mind, you know, I often will, you know, I've got to be careful what I'm saying here, but, you know, I find that, you know, good to look at, attractive to look at, a muscular, nice man with a nice physique. I'm a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
When he was young, he had a fantastic physique.
Well, we can see this in sculpture.
Yes.
So, you know, when I went to see Michelangelo's David, you're looking at David going, you know, look at that perfect body of that man. There's, you know, so we can see beauty in men, but they're they're less than 1% of men.
Yes.
Where the vast majority of women, we would like to see naked.
Yes. And I think you gave a good example of that earlier when we were talking, I think. You said if your friend said she had an ugly...
Yeah, let's not get into that. That might be... Yeah, we won't talk. But yeah, so I've got examples.
I like our listeners to think that we speak openly in this, but
so that's why he did it. He thought, I would like you to send me pictures of your breasts, and of course you'd like to see pictures of my penis.
Is that what he said?
No, but that's his thing. That's his thought process. But people like that, we know straight away that they have no common sense and no reality of the world, because any man with common sense knows that that's not true. So how's he got to 40 years old not knowing that that's not true? I don't know. I can understand a 15-year-old making that mistake. Not a 40-year-old man who's married with children. So what's he doing? Trying to cheat on his wife. And the biggest issue here is how easy he was blackmailed. How easy it was for him to throw his colleagues under a bus by then sharing their mobile numbers with this scam artist. And we don't know what the motive of this is. And it's like, you're a traitor and a coward. And I use the word traitor because he's an elected MP.
Yeah.
He's got some power. He's connected to very powerful people. And he did sit on some very important committees.
Well, he's a traitor because he's endangering other MPs who are the people who look after us and run our country. That's why he's a traitor.
Yeah.
But how many red flags are with this character? He's 40 years old. There's your first red flag. He's married with children. He's prepared to have an affair. He thinks showing his penis, sending a picture of his penis to a woman would somehow be attractive. Yeah. And then he gives other MPs' numbers to the same woman when he's being blackmailed. Yeah. I mean, it's the numbers of issues there are phenomenal. And how did Jeremy Hunt, our esteemed Chancellor, respond to this?
He said, well, this MP, once he realised he'd been caught out and he knew the press were going to run a story on it, he then told his colleagues, because he had to, he was going to be in the paper anyway. The Chancellor said he was, I think it was very brave and courageous to come out. And I'm like, you're not brave and courageous, you're a traitor. You should have been sacked as a Tory MP there and then, but no, they stuck up for him, and eventually the pressure was too much and he had to resign the whip anyway. He's still an MP, still being paid £92,000 a year, so he's not resigning the money, he just now can't sit as a Tory MP.
Mr. Wright said he was sorry for his weakness, an apology which was praised as courageous and fulsome. Like that. I suppose he fulsome underpants.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I can say on
the
that.
Chancellor now needs to resign because your judgment is flawed and pathetic.
Yes. And he resigned the whip himself. He wasn't sacked.
He wasn't even... So doing that's okay for a Tory. The Tories won't sack you for that.
Yeah.
But the pressure got to him and he sacked himself as a Tory. But the Tory party didn't sack him for that.
It gives you a massive insight into the people who are running our country.
Yeah.
That has happened, doesn't it?
It's all about them.
Yeah.
That sexting was all about him, some sort of gratification, hoping to get laid.
Yeah.
All about him.
Yeah.
Never once did he put his country first. Never once did he put his wife and children first.
No.
Never once did he put his colleagues first. Put no one first. Just himself.
Just himself and his penis.
And his penis.
So yeah, so your point about that, and we talked earlier, and we use the word decorum and values. They don't exist in this example, do they? There's no decorum.
There's no values there.
There's no values. And we talked earlier about this, and we said, where does this come from, this belief, decorum, and how to behave? And we talked again about Christianity and Christian values, and I've talked about this before. Christianity and the values that you and I were taught as children in church and everything like that seems to have disappeared now, and the very things that defined the way that we felt we should behave, and that this guy's younger than us, I suppose, in that way, they seem to have kind of vanished.
They have. Men have always done these things to a certain extent, as in want affairs. And once you become an MP, you've suddenly got power. Women find power attractive. So as a very under average looking man that he is, he's probably never had his choice of women. He's now an MP. He gets a text, sees a photo and goes, she fancies me. I've never, I may never slept with a woman as beautiful as her before. I can understand the honey trap. The second he realised it was a honey trap, he should have been straight to the police, straight to the Prime Minister going, this is what I did, but it stops there, because that's my personal life.
I've made a mistake.
A mistake, but that's my personal life. We
have a threat here to the country.
That's what he should have done, but he didn't.
Yeah.
His cowardice took over. So there's different levels of morality here. Him cheating on his wife is not a problem if his wife's okay with it.
Was she okay with it?
Well, we don't know. She's not said a word. So the odds are no, she's not, because he doesn't get any offers anyway. So she would never have had that conversation with him. His children. How can you do this as an MP knowing if it goes wrong you're being oppressed? He's damaged his children now. There are butter jokes now between their friends and online. This is what happens when we have weak men. People suffer.
They're weak men, but they're weak men in positions of real power.
Yes.
These are our MPs we're talking about here. I remember years ago, do you remember Stephen Milligan, the MP? He used to wear the thick glasses. He was found dead in a wardrobe hanging. He used to hang himself.
I don't remember the name, but I remember the story.
And I remember looking at him at the time. It was a long time ago. I must have been a lot younger. But I just thought, how did this guy end up as an MP?
Yeah.
He was a particularly unattractive specimen. He had these bottled thick glasses, and the reason he was wearing thick glasses is apparently when you do that autoerotic asphyxiation, it stops the blood getting to your eyes and you go a bit blind, basically. Right. So it was this weedy example of a guy, I don't know if he was even married, who was obviously a freaky pervert who used to hang himself in a wardrobe, probably because he used to get sodomised at public school. These are the people running our country.
And again, let's go back to policing and recruiting. How are we recruiting these people to be potential MPs? What are these parties doing to make sure we have decent people? Reform UK have just taken a local councillor off their books who won't be standing for them in this election. Why? Been dead 2 years. So all these.
Yeah, but maybe that's not in the selection criteria. Yeah. Being dead may not be an obstacle to getting on the.
Yeah. Well, you're dead. Yeah. You're going to be less trouble on the sex front, aren't you? That's true.
There'll be no dissension from this one. Yeah.
But my point is, all political parties need to increase their recruiting standards and make sure they're recruiting the best people.
Yeah, they don't vet them, do they? Basically.
Well, to a certain extent, they don't care.
Yeah.
Because their vetting process isn't what we think the vetting process. Their vetting process is: are you going to do as you're told?
Yes.
Are you going to follow the whip? When we tell you to jump, will you jump? And will you ask how high?
Yeah.
That's what's important for the parties, not your morality, not what you believe. And it's like, are you controllable? Because we just want to control you. Make sure you vote when we tell you to vote.
Yeah.
So they've got different. We need different priorities for political parties.
But if you'd asked William Bragg the question, why do you want to be an MP? What he should have said, truthfully, is, I want to be an MP because I'm not particularly attractive. I think if I become an MP, I'll be more attractive, and hopefully there'll be an opportunity to send a picture of my penis to a woman.
Yes.
A random woman. That's what he should have said. Speaking of muscular men, so as we said earlier, neither of us have a problem with looking at a muscular man every now and then. There's a Lib Dem candidate for local elections, which are coming up, I'm guessing.
Yeah, same day as the mayoral election, 2nd of May.
Same day, so you can vote for this chap as well at the same time as you vote for Nick. And it's basically been found out that he has a private OnlyFans account in which he poses I'm guessing in shorts or whatever.
It sounds like it's a gay fetish.
Gay fetish. Is he gay, this character?
I don't know, but it sounds like a gay fetish. He certainly presents
himself, so we understand he presents himself on a gay OnlyFans account, showing pictures of himself or doing
Yeah.
videos of himself.
It seemed to be more pictures from whatever.
Oh, was it? Yeah. Presumably he's quite muscular, is he?
Yeah, that's what it's. Yeah.
I haven't seen the pictures.
Yeah. The pictures was of his face. He didn't have anything.
Well, okay, no, well, it's fine. I don't have a problem if you had to do that. So, what's happened to him since this has been discovered?
So he's a Lib Dem.
Yes.
He's a Lib Dem candidate.
Which is already a massive disadvantage.
Yeah, and he's standing in Hale Barnes and Timperley for the Lib Dems. So
Trafford.
Trafford, posh area as well. Hale Barnes and Timperley are quite posh. Yeah, so Trafford again. Your after this podcast, your house price is tumbling.
I know. You've destroyed the gains that my house has made in the past 5 years in one episode.
So the issue here is this was a private OnlyFans account, so you only get access to it if you pay, so you got to be a member, which is fine. None of this was publicly accessible. And he's done nothing wrong. Lib Dems are staying with him, saying, well, his private life's his private life, nothing to do with us. And if he becomes a councillor, he probably won't have time to carry on doing that, so it's not a problem. So they've stuck by him. The reason why I raised this is because it's another example of, you used the word decorum, I used the word of morality. There is no shared morality anymore in our country. There's no more social norms. So it's perfectly acceptable for the third largest party, if we judge it by MP seats, national, the Lib Dems, to have a man who is selling sexually explicit photos on OnlyFans to stand for them as a local councillor. That wouldn't have been acceptable 30 years ago. Then the MP, what he did, has never been acceptable. How have we got to this stage? But again, as I'm saying this, there will be many people going, I've not got a problem with that, Nick. I've not got a problem with a potential councillor selling sexualised photos on the internet. Good for him. He's not hurting anybody. And he isn't hurting anybody. That's correct. But unless we have some sort of shared morality in the country, then anything goes.
Yeah.
Because you may think that's fine, and maybe it is fine. But what about the next person who wants to do something different? He wants sex with chickens. We eat chickens. We use their feathers for dress. And, someone may have done experiments on chickens. So if we can do that to chickens, why can't we sleep with them? So somebody else may go, well, this is my morality. Then somebody else will go, well, I don't see why 11-year-olds can't consent to sex. We keep pushing the boundaries and boundaries and boundaries all the time. I don't know where the line is. I really don't know where the line is. That's for a national discussion. But we need to get some sort of common ground in the country about what we're willing to accept and what we're not, and what are the social norms. That doesn't mean what that man has done is illegal and should be illegal. It shouldn't be illegal. But I don't want the law involved with what that man's doing. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean I think it's perfectly normal and perfectly acceptable and I want him representing me as a councillor.
Yeah. And the people who have failed here for me are the Lib Dems. Because actually what the Lib Dems should have said, I realise it's legal, you can do what you do in your private life, is your own matter. However, for the nature, to be a candidate for the Liberal Democrats, this is not appropriate. And we don't want you as a candidate. That's what they should have done. But they're as weak as everybody else, aren't they? They are the ones who will also accept this sort of stuff. They are the ones that are breaking down the barriers actively, as are all the other parties as well, and allowing it to happen. That's what's
promoting
happening.
And making it normal and making it acceptable by them going, it's his private life, but they actually say we're sticking by him.
Yeah. And we talked about the Oscars. I'm sorry, I'm leaping out of Manchester. We talked about the Oscars and John Cena coming on naked. And again, this stuff is being allowed to happen. People aren't saying that's not appropriate. People are saying we're not and it's becoming more acceptable. But as you say, as one barrier tumbles, another barrier tumbles, and another, and we reach the point where things start to happen that are unacceptable. And that's why that decorum, that's why that morality was there in the first place. It's the first defence against something far more horrible happening further down the line. It's not the most horrible thing to happen, so you stop it here, you dam it here, it doesn't wash over things down here, does it? But that dam has gone now, and it's rolling downhill, and things like this are happening, and things like this, because the two things are connected, aren't they?
Yeah, I think both.
William Ragg has been called stunning and brave.
Yes.
for those behaviours. This guy here, we haven't got his name here, he's called Muscle Mank One,
Yeah.
has done something here, and he's been told by his party, that's fine, you privatise your own business.
Yeah, and we're sticking by him.
We're sticking by him.
Do you know what I've just realised? I didn't say before. What they've got in common now, and what we're really discussing, but we've not said the word, is shame. Both those men feel no shame, and that's what keeps us from doing wrong, and that's what keeps us on the straight and narrow is shame, internal shame and societal shame. So societal shame now is gone.
Yeah.
Jeremy Kyle's show, I write in one of my books, that was the beginning of the end of societal shame, when we started using failing people as entertainment. So we'd have, there'd be a show about, I don't know, a 17-year-old girl, I'm pregnant, I don't know if it's my boyfriend or my boyfriend's great granddad, I'm not sure which one's the father.
And then they bring them both in.
Yeah, and they end up fighting and da-da-da. And it was that sort of behaviour that other people who were shameful were going, my life must be okay because I'm not like that. Well, yeah, you're shameful as well, just not as bad as that.
Yeah.
Both these men should be feeling shame. Doesn't mean they should stop what they're doing. It doesn't mean what they did was illegal or they shouldn't do it. But they should have felt shame, as in, I don't want anyone to find out about this because it's shameful, but it's not anymore, and that's the problem.
You know something? Maybe they both did feel shame, but they felt shame, but then next minute, Jeremy Hunt's saying, you don't need to feel shame. Next minute, the Lib Dems are saying, you don't need to feel shame. So, hang on a minute. I felt some shame, but actually I don't. So suddenly you get that shift again.
You get the validation.
The validation. You're validated.
Yeah.
These behaviours are validated, and that's the problem, that we are now validating behaviours, and we go back to the drag queens with the dildos.
Yeah.
We're now validating behaviours that 10, 20 years ago people would have been regarded as shameful, and they would have been told they were shameful and to stop doing it.
And historically speaking, we've heard all these stories before. We've heard about Sodom and Gomorrah. We've heard about the fall of the Roman Empire. When we get this level of decency, and this is what we're heading to. We're heading for the collapse of Western civilization because there's no more social norms holding us all together.
Well, I must say that's a very shocking statement from you, because you and I have talked about this before, because I've expressed a view that this could be the end of society, and I think in the past you've said, no, I think it's fine, it's just a phase.
I think we'll get over it, but this is one of the avenues we're going down if we don't do something about it. I think the swing's already in. I think 10 years from now the country will be more right-wing, a little bit more Victorian in its standards.
Oh, it's going back the right way, you think?
The
right way that I regard the right way. No, yeah.
That's happening. That's already happening.
Very good. Nick, that brings us to the end of today's episode. For the viewers, Nick will be posting a picture of his naked torso at the end of the video. There'll be a link. Obviously, you'll have to pay for it.
Do you mean naked as in sexy naked, or naked as in wrapped up in plastic in the wetlands?
I'm sure the viewers would like either of those. Yeah.
If you can comment on A or B, which one would you prefer?
Yeah, why don't you put one of those little votes on at the end? Naked torso in the wetlands or naked torso in a shirt. That would be it. The mayoral election is happening on the 2nd of May. Nick Buckley is standing. Nick Buckley MBE is standing. Please vote for Nick.
Yeah. There's only 6 candidates standing.
Oh, yes.
6 candidates, and I'm the only independent.
Fantastic.
Cheers.
Thank you very much, Nick.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.